July 9th, 2020 Legislation Regulation Committee. My name is Greg Lippy, Chairman of the committee. Before we convene, I advise all individuals observing or participating in the meeting that the meeting is being conducted consistent with the provisions of Governor Gavin Newsom's Executive Order N 29-20. Participants watching the webcast will only be able to observe the meeting. Anyone interested in participating in the meeting must join the WebEx meeting. Information and instructions are posted on our website. I will announce when we are accepting public comment on the various issues, and staff will open the lines as appropriate. I have advised staff to allot 2 minutes to each individual providing comments. This approach is necessary to facilitate the meeting and ensure the committee has the opportunity to complete its necessary work today. I appreciate everyone's understanding and patience as we navigate the meeting format. Before we get started, I will ask the staff moderating the meeting to please provide general instructions. Okay, it's your turn.
Thank you. This is the moderator. Welcome to the Pharmacy Board's meeting or committee meeting here. Before we get started, I would like to remind committee members and staff who are not speaking to mute their microphone. If I detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will interject and with a brief friendly reminder or simply mute the microphones so I don't interrupt the meeting. To facilitate public comment, we'll be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature. When the committee chair reaches a point in the agenda which public comment is appropriate, public comment will be requested. At the board's and committee's direction, I will turn on and announce the Q&A feature. Members of the public can observe the meeting through webcast. However, if they would like to participate in public comment, they must enter WebEx event through the link provided in the agenda. Members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by clicking on the icon with a question mark located at the bottom center of their WebEx screen. These instructions are on the screen for your reference and will be shared each time. In the Ask field, typically in the lower right of the WebEx screen, members of the public who wish to make a comment could type, "I would like to make a public comment," and send it to all panelists. Any other communication will not be responded to. It is not necessary to identify yourself in order to make a public comment. I will take the comments in the order that they are received. I will call on a member of the public and unmute their microphones. The members of the public will have 2 minutes to make their comments, and I will provide a 10-second warning at the end or at the conclusion of their comments. The microphones will be muted and we'll move on to the next member of the public who has a comment. Please note that the Q&A feature is being used only as a means for members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. Once unmuted, the member of the public may verbally state their comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the board or committee. Such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be answered to. If any attendees utilize a profane name with their display name or profane language, they will not be called upon to prevent members of the public from being subjected to profane language. While you are free to express criticism or negative views, for the sake of the members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the board and the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now take a roll call to establish a quorum. Members, as I call your name, please remember to open your line before speaking. Cheryl Butler.
Here.
Thank you. Brian Brooks.
Here.
Thank you. Shirley Kim.
Here.
Thank you. Sung Oh.
Here.
Thank you. Maria Serpa.
Here.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, with a quorum being established, the committee will now entertain any public comments for items not on the agenda. To facilitate the portion of the meeting, as I previously announced, the moderator will open up the phone line for individuals who wish to provide public comment. You are not required to identify yourself, but may do so. As we open the lines, I remind everyone that the committee cannot take action on these items except to decide whether to place an item on a future agenda. Okay, it's time for public comment. Moderator, please open the lines.
This is the moderator. The Q&A feature has been turned on at the direction of the board, the committee. If you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon with the question mark located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. I'm sharing the instructions on the screen for your reference. As a reminder, if you are a member of the public and would like to participate in public comment, you must enter via the WebEx event link provided in the agenda. In the Ask field, typically lower right of your screen, type "I would like to make a public comment" and send it to all panelists. Any other communications will not be responded to. I'll pause for a moment to allow the members of the public time to access the Q&A feature and submit their requests. I have an individual identified as Holly Strong. Holly, I will be unmuting your microphone in just a moment. You'll have 2 minutes, and I will provide you with a 10-second warning. Holly, your microphone has been unmuted.
Hi there. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yesterday during the licensing committee, we discussed a legislative change that might be required for pharmacists to conduct a CLIA-waived COVID-19 antigen tests. And we also discussed some urgent intervention that the governor might be able to do, but that's not why I'm speaking. I want to have the Leg Reg Committee be aware of that discussion from yesterday and to agendize for a future meeting how this approach might be taken after Anne does her research that she asked to be able to do yesterday on the matter.
Thank you, Holly.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, the next item is discussion and consideration of petitions submitted to the board for interpretive ruling or policy statement regarding mandatory reporting provision of Penal Code Section 11160 and its applicability to community pharmacists. During June 18, 2020, the board received public comment requesting that the board provide a policy statement or other ruling regarding the provisions of California Penal Code Section 11160 and its applicability to community pharmacists. Subsequent to the meeting, the board received a formal request for consideration, which is included in the meeting materials. Also provided in the meeting materials is a legal analysis provided by DCA counsel William McGuire. I appreciate that this important issue was brought to the board and the committee. The legal analysis concluded that it does not appear that a community pharmacist would be considered a mandatory reporter under the provisions of the Penal Code, but it also details that there's no definition of community pharmacist. The analysis cautions that an independent assessment of the facts should be made. I agree with the recommendation of counsel that the board refrain from issuing an interpretive ruling or policy statement for the previous stated reasons, but also because enforcement of the provision does not reside with our board. Members, do you have any comments or questions? If so, please remember to open your line and identify yourself. Anybody have comments? Okay. Not receiving any. I'll now open have the moderator open the lines for public comment. Moderator, please open the lines.
This is the moderator. I've just opened the Q&A feature, and the instructions will be on your screen. This is, if you would like to participate in public comment, please click on the icon with a question mark located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. As a reminder, if you're a member of the public and would like to participate in public comment, you must enter the WebEx event through the link provided in the agenda. In the Ask field, typically in the lower right of your WebEx screen, type "I would like to make a public comment" and send it to all panelists. Any other communication will not be responded to. It is not necessary to identify yourself in order to make a public comment, and I'll be taking the comments in the order that they are received. I'm going to pause for a moment to allow members of the public to access the Q&A feature and submit their requests. I have an individual identified as Stephen Gray. Stephen Gray, I will unmute your microphone shortly. You'll have 2 minutes, and I will provide you with a 10-second warning. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President Lippy, for allowing us to comment. First of all, I agree with your assessment that the board should, at this time, not get involved in this. But this is a serious issue about mandatory reporter of child abuse, elder abuse, etc. The petitioner does refer that there is science that says that having pharmacists be mandatory reporters in community pharmacies, might actually be more detrimental than beneficial. If there is such science, I would suggest that perhaps the board could ask for a scientific review from another party, maybe one of the universities, because we should be operating and making decisions about science. But I also agree with the DOJ in that or the DCA attorney saying that there's no good definition of community pharmacists. We have a lot of pharmacists who are not working in facilities, licensed facilities, but are working in community pharmacies that are actually managing therapy under collaborative drug therapy management, actually getting very much involved with the treatment of patients. Likewise, in medical offices or even out of their own pharmacist offices have been practicing for years in California. Perhaps over 2,000 pharmacists in California have such full-time practices and never touch a drug, but they're managing problems which might alert them to some abusive problems. So I agree with your statement, but I think perhaps a follow-up should be considered by the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Chairperson, no additional requests were submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
It has been closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll move on to agenda item 4, which is discussion and consideration of pharmacy security requirements. Beginning on or around May 29th, numerous pharmacies in California and nationwide were damaged, vandalized, looted, and in some cases set on fire. The scope of damage ranged significantly and in some cases appears to have escalated over time. Some pharmacies were targeted on more than one occasion. On June 1st, 2020, the board released guidance to provide pharmacies with recommendations on actions to take and also reminded licensees of the Ask Inspector email and phone number. For several weeks, board staff communicated with pharmacies who experienced damages and losses, primarily during the period of May 29, 2020 to June 2nd, 2020. Based on the voluntary reporting of closures, damages, and controlled substance losses as of June 30th, the board is aware of 286 pharmacies reporting damage or destruction. The reporting indicates that 98 of the pharmacies sustaining damage were independent pharmacies and 5 remain closed. Further, the reporting indicates that 187 chain store pharmacies were impacted, with 100 either still closed or the board was unclear as to the status. To fully understand the scope and severity of the damage and destruction, as well as to demonstrate what appears to be planned and coordinated efforts on the part of the looters, the meeting materials provide a summary of the types of damages sustained. Front and back doors, including iron gates, were smashed and pried open. Safes and controlled substance cabinets were stolen, pried, or smashed open. Surveillance videos inside some pharmacies showed groups arriving in cars, trucks with hammers, drills, saws, chains, and bolt cutters. In some cases, there appeared to be coordination between several groups, with each following in close succession. Refrigerator doors were left open, and fire extinguishers were used, leaving retardant throughout the pharmacies. 2 pharmacies were set on fire. Pharmacies were looted while the pharmacy was open, closed, even after windows and doors were boarded up. Many alarm systems were activated, but law enforcement did not respond. In addition to drugs, prescription records, cash registers, and cash computers, as well as licenses, were also taken in some cases. Over-the-counter and other front-end products were stolen. The question here is whether we should consider setting some security standards in the hope of minimizing losses in the future. One suggestion might be to direct staff to work with the DEA to determine if development of best practices would be beneficial. I would now like for any members that have comments to make to please make them and identify yourself.
Hi, Greg. It's Song. I just want to say that I think the biggest concern here is that many alarm systems were activated, but there were no law enforcement that showed up, which is extremely alarming. And also so much that was stolen were, of course, they were focused on medications, but also so much damage and potential privacy breach for all the written materials, and anything that shows patient information was also compromised. So I think it is really important for us to take some sort of measure to request the staff to at least do some studies on what are some of the possible measures that we can take, since the regulatory powers we have can hopefully potentially add a little more layers of what the pharmacy securities would be needed. So I would like to request that for, if possible, to get started, and then hopefully we can discuss this as a whole board in the next meeting or two, so down the road.
Okay, well, I think given that, I don't know if you want to make a motion. I don't think a motion is necessary to direct staff to look into this. So I think we can just do this, but I'd also like to get some public comments. So thank you, Sung. First, does anybody else have any comments from the board? No? Okay. Moderator, please open for public comments.
This is the moderator. The Q&A has been opened. A reminder, members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, click on the question mark located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. I'm sharing the instructions on the screen for your reference. In the ask field, type, I would like to make a public comment, and send it to all panelists. Any other communication will not be responded to. I'm going to pause for a moment to allow members of the public to submit their requests. You have an individual identified as Danny Martinez. Danny, I will unmute your microphone shortly, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 10-second warning. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Thank you. Danny Martinez. Good afternoon, committee members. Danny Martinez with the California Pharmacists Association. I want to just make a quick comment that as the staff is considering what security measures should be put in place, I would like to note that there were some pharmacies that were destroyed or vandalized in the looting, members of ours, that got to the point where they were trying to make it so secure. One pharmacy in particular they boarded up their pharmacy, and they had the metal gates that were fully locked, and yet looters still managed to get past both of those and completely destroy the pharmacy. So I want to make that clear, because as you're discussing what appropriate security measures are recommended to take place, please understand that even if you have, if you build a safe around the pharmacy, somebody is still going to find a way to figure out in those types of events to get in. And so just please understand that as we look at the security measures that should be taking place, not everyone is going to stop them, and slowing down is obviously the goal here. But just understand that anything that you put as a mandatory requirement for security measures, just take that into account, that as much as pharmacies tried to protect their pharmacy, the patient information, and the drugs that they held, they were still able to get in and be destroyed. So just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Danny. And we will obviously give heavy consideration to the cost benefit.
Hey, Mr. President.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question for Danny.
Sure.
If he's still there.
Yes, this is the moderator. I will go and unmute Danny. Just a second.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Hey, Danny, this is Ryan Brooks.
Hey, Ryan.
What recommendations do you guys have for security? I mean, I heard you tell us, what you don't want, but can you tell us what you do want?
Well, I mean, I don't answer you right now. I do know that we do tell our members to try and be as secure as possible. Obviously, we have recommendations in terms of properly securing the booking, having that kind of measures in place. I will say a family member of mine is a 911 dispatcher, and on that night, she was telling me there were so many calls coming in, the average wait time was 7 hours. So I don't know that for instances of this kind of activity where there's looting to that extent, beyond what we already have or recommend to our members in terms of, making sure they're securely locked and try to slow down the looters as much as possible. I don't know that there's anything else that we can say at this point.
Okay, well, we are directing staff to look into it and consider it, so
Okay, thank you.
all aspects will be considered. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Ryan. Does anybody else have anything to say at this point?
Chairperson, this is the moderator. No further requests were submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
It has been closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm moving on to agenda item 5, discussion and consideration of legislation impacting the practice of pharmacy, the board's jurisdiction, or board operations. Members, as we begin our discussion on pending legislation, I do not intend to read each measure nor the bill analysis provided. Further, I intend to seek motions for recommended positions on measures. The first bill that I will discuss is Assembly Bill 2028. AB 2028 would require state agencies to post meeting materials the same day the information is disseminated to members of the state body, or at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting, whichever sooner. Under the provisions of the measure, additional flexibility is provided for pending legislation. Staff have highlighted some concerns with the proposal as detailed in the bill analysis. I've been advised just today that yesterday the bill was amended and that the amendments could be substantial. I suggest that at this point we not take a position and we request staff to work with council to evaluate whether their concerns have been addressed by the amendments and presented at the full board meeting later this month. That's my recommendation. Do I have any member comments on this? Okay, moderator, could you open the lines for public comment?
This is the moderator. I've opened the Q&A feature at the direction of the board. If you would like to make a comment, please click on the icon with a question mark located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. I'm sharing the instructions on the screen for your reference. As a reminder, if you would like to participate in public comment, must enter through the WebEx event through the link provided in the agenda. In the Ask field, type, I would like to make a public comment and send it to all panelists. Any other communication will not be responded to. Reminder, it is not necessary to identify yourself in order to make a public comment, and the comments will be taken in the order that they are received. The Q&A feature is only being used for members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. Once unmuted, the member of the public may verbally state their comment. Again, this is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the board or committee, and such inquiries using this feature will not be answered. And Chairperson, we haven't received any requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
It's been closed.
Okay, the next bill is AB 2077. AB 2077 extends until January 1, 2026, the sunset date of the current law that allows the retail sale or furnishing of a hypodermic needle or syringe to a person 18 years of age or older without a prescription. Board staff suggests a support position on this. As indicated in the bill analysis, the board has historically supported such measures. I agree with the staff's support position. Would any member care to comment at this point? Okay, moderator, let's open for public comment.
This is the moderator. I've opened the Q&A feature. Just as a reminder, the instructions are on your screen. If you would like to make a comment, click on the Q&A icon and type "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field lower right of your WebEx screen and send it to all panelists. I'll pause for a moment to allow members of the public time to access the Q&A feature and submit their comments. Chairperson, no requests were submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you. It has been closed.
Okay, would a member like to make a motion to support this bill?
This is Cheryl Butler, and I would like to make a motion to support the bill.
Thank you, Cheryl. Would somebody like to?
Second.
What's
Hi,
that?
this is Sung. I can second.
Second? Okay, from Sung. Okay, great.
Excuse me, President Lippy, I apologize for interrupting. To clarify, the motion would be to recommend to the board a support position on 2077. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, having had member comment and public comment, I'll take a vote. So, here we go. Cheryl Butler.
Yes.
Thank you. Ryan Brooks.
Yes.
Thank you. Shirley Kim.
Yes.
Thank you. Sung Oh.
Yes.
Thank you. Maria Serpa.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, passes. The next bill that we're going to discuss is,
I apologize. Is your vote a yes as well? I apologize for the interruption again.
yes. Everybody voted yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Yes, chair votes yes. Thank you. Okay, Assembly Bill 2113. This would require boards within the DCA to expedite the initial licensure process for an applicant who supplies satisfactory evidence to the board that the applicant is a refugee, been granted political asylum, or possesses a special immigrant visa. I note that staff is not offering a recommendation on this measure, and I personally don't believe that one appears necessary, but I would like to hear members' comments from the members if you have any. Okay, not hearing any from members. Moderator, could you please open for public comment?
This is the moderator. I opened the Q&A feature for public comment. The instructions are on the screen. Click on the Q&A icon and type "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field and send it to all of the panelists. I'll pause for a moment to allow members of the public to access the Q&A feature. No requests were submitted, Chairperson. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
It has been closed. Thank you.
Okay, having had public comment and not having anybody suggest a motion, I'm moving on to the next bill. Sorry about that. Assembly Bill 2549. AB 2549. Excuse me for a second. Okay. AB 2549 would require the board to issue temporary licenses to military spouses and require the board to promulgate regulations. The temporary license will be good for up to 12 months. Staff have identified some consumer protection concerns with the measure in its current form. Staff is recommending an opposed unless amended position, noting that legal requirements and practice standards for pharmacists vary between jurisdictions and suggests it may be appropriate to specify that passing the CPJE must be a requirement prior to issuing a temporary pharmacist license. I agree with staff's recommendation. I think we need to establish a minimum competency for anybody that we're going to be granting a temporary license to. And I believe that would be consistent with the board's consumer protection mandate. Members, do you have any comments? If so, please identify yourselves. Okay, having heard no comments from the members, moderator, please open the lines for public comment.
This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A feature. Again, members of the public, the instructions are on the screen. Click on the icon with the question mark and type "I would like to make a comment" in the ask field and send it to all of the panelists. I'll pause for a moment to allow members of the public to submit their requests. Chairperson, no requests were submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please close it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next bill is AB 2983. AB 2983 would prohibit a pharmacy from automatically contacting a prescriber to request a refill authorization unless the prescriber or patient has expressly authorized such contact. As indicated in the bill analysis, the board has a pending regulation change that supports the staff's recommendation for a support position on this measure. Staff notes that as part of its pending regulations, it would prevent a pharmacy from automatically enrolling an individual into an auto refill program, and notes that some of patient safety concerns being addressed in the board's regulation proposal would also be remedied by the proposed legislation, and those concerns would include things such as duplication in therapy. Members, do I have any comments on this measure? Okay, none being heard. Please, moderator, open the lines for public comment.
This is the moderator. The Q&A feature has been open. Again, members of the public, the instructions are on the screen. If you would like to make a comment, click on the Q&A icon, type in "I would like to make a comment" in the ask field and send it to all the panelists.
Steve, this is Ryan Brooks.
This is the moderator. I do have a member of the public who would like to make a comment. May I proceed, Chairperson?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Individual identified as Lindsay would like to make a comment. Lindsay, I will be unmuting your microphone. You have 2 minutes and I'll give you a 10-second warning. You have been unmuted.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lindsay Golahorn and I represent the California Retailers Association and the National Association of Chain Drugstores. We are regretfully opposed to AB 2983 because we believe it will significantly limit the ability of pharmacies to request refills on behalf of patients. It was amended on June 15th, and those amendments certainly do address many of our concerns. But some of our key concerns remain, namely that the bill still prohibits pharmacies from requesting more than the number of refills authorized in the original prescription. We believe this is inefficient and potentially harmful for patients, especially those who have chronic conditions and are managing multiple medications. Automated refills allow pharmacies to ensure patients stay current on their medications and don't potentially miss doses, which could result in poor health outcomes, emergency room visits, or worse. We do appreciate Assemblymember Holden's goal to enhance patient safety with this bill and mitigate workflow challenges for prescribers. But as I said, we don't believe AB 2983 is the appropriate solution. We think adding extra steps to the automated refill process will make it more difficult for patients to obtain medications necessary for a new course of therapy or ongoing maintenance. And ultimately, we understand that some prescribers may view automated refill requests as an annoyance, but the prescriber still maintains discretion to deny a request. Currently, if a prescriber receives a refill request from a pharmacy and does not believe it is appropriate for the patient, they simply deny the request. Again, we appreciate the time the author has spent with us discussing our concerns, but unfortunately, we remain opposed to the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
This is the moderator. No further requests were submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. I
has-
think we had another request from a panel, from a board member. Ryan, did you have something you wanted to submit?
It's more of a procedural question, and it might be a legal question. And for the to save some time, can we read all the bills and then do public comment and board comment at the end? Or do we have to have public comment after every bill we read?
Well, we don't have too many left, and I think it's better if we do comment after each one at this point.
We do have DCA counsel on the line, Rebecca, but I believe in general, if the board wants to establish a position on a matter, it will need to provide the opportunity for public comment on that motion. So if you wished to establish a position on the current measure, you would need to provide an opportunity for the public to comment on the motion that is before the committee.
Yeah. By the way, Ryan, when we get to the regulations, that's all information. So I'm going to take those in groups.
Perfect.
But I think on the legislation, given that each side has, the board and the public have to comment, and we have to take positions or not, I think it's better to take it one by one.
Okay.
Thank you. So now that we've had the opportunity for member comment and we've had public comment, would any member wish to make a motion on AB 2983, which the staff has recommended that we support? Okay, nobody wishes to make a motion, and we'll move on. Assembly Bill 3045. AB 3045 would require boards within the DCA to issue a license to an applicant if the applicant meets specified requirements, including that the applicant was honorably discharged from the armed forces, or is married, or in a domestic partnership, or other legal union with an active duty member. Staff notes in the prepared analysis that the board has a history of supporting measures that support the military. However, staff noted concerns that under the provisions of the bill, the board would lose its ability to ensure minimum competency prior to issuing a license. Given these concerns, staff is recommending an opposed unless amended position. It would appear appropriate to request amendment to allow the board to, at a minimum, require passage of the CPJE for pharmacist applicants. Members, do we have any comments? Okay, moderator, could you open the lines for public comment?
This is the moderator. The Q&A feature is now open. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, the instructions are on the screen. Click on the Q&A icon at the bottom center of your screen and then type "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field, typically located at the lower right of your WebEx screen, and send it to all panelists. Chairperson, no requests were submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Assembly Bill 3342, as related to the board's jurisdiction, would authorize a pharmacy to furnish epinephrine auto-injectors to the State Department of Healthcare Services under the program created pursuant to this bill, subject to similar requirements. Staff notes in its analysis that the board historically supported such measures and is recommending that the board establish a support position. I agree with the staff's recommendation. Are there any comments by members? Okay, moderator, please open the lines for public comment.
The Q&A feature has been opened. Again, instructions on the screen if you would like to make a comment. Click on the Q&A icon and type "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field and send it to all panelists. No requests were submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senate Bill 878. This would require boards within the DCA to prominently display the current time frame for processing initial and renewal license applications on the internet website. As staff notes in the analysis provided, the board publicly reports application processing times as part of the quarterly licensing committee and board meetings. I note that staff is not recommending a position on the measure, and I agree that a position isn't necessary. The board will continue to publicly report processing times and can transition to meet the provisions of the measure. Any comments from members? Okay, moderator, please open for public comment.
The Q&A feature has been open for public comments. Simply click on the icon with the question mark and type "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field. Chairperson, no requests were submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Has
Thank
been
you.
closed.
Okay, next bill is Senate Bill 1474. 1474 would extend the operations of several boards, including the Board of Pharmacy, for 1 year. In December 2019, the board submitted its sunset review report in anticipation of review by oversight committees this year. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the unprecedented nature of the 2020 legislative session, oversight review was postponed. The extension provided in this measure will allow for the board to be evaluated via the comprehensive sunset review process next year. I agree with staff's recommendation to establish a support position on the measure. Members, are there any comments? Okay, let's open the lines for public comment. Moderator?
The Q&A feature has been opened. Just click on the icon with the question mark and type that you would like to make a comment in the Ask field and send it to all panelists. No requests were submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. Okay, would a member like to make a motion to support SB 1474, which would extend the operations of several boards, including our board, for 1 year to have the sunset review process next year?
This song, I can make the motion.
Thank you, Sung. Would somebody make? Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, with a motion and a second and public comment already being received, I will now take a vote on the motion. Start with Maria Serpa.
Yes.
Thank you. Song Ho.
Yes.
Thank you. Brian Brooks.
Yes.
Thank you. Shirley Kim.
Yes.
Thank you. Cheryl Butler.
Yes.
Thank you. And I vote yes. So it passes. We have now completed the legislative section of my report. Now I'm going to move on to the regulation portion. As we move to the regulation portion of the report, I note that the information provided is informational only. As such, I intend to ask for public comment following each section as opposed to following each regulation specifically. Comments can extend to any of the regulations covered. The first section is Board Adopted Regulations approved by the Office of Administrative Law. The board has two regulation packages that were recently approved by the Office of Administrative Law. First one is proposed regulation to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1706.2 related to abandonment of applications. This regulation change updated the application abandonment language to ensure the provisions applied to all application types. As amended, the regulation ensures that all applicants have proper notice about requirements for application abandonment. The amended regulation becomes effective on October 1st, 2020. The next regulation is proposed regulation to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1707.2 related to duty to consult. This regulation amends the board's regulations regarding the duty to provide consultation for mail order pharmacies. These changes also take effect on October 1st, 2020. Members, are there any comments on this section? Okay, not hearing any comments. Moderator, please open the lines for public comment.
This is the moderator. The Q&A feature is now open. Again, the instructions are on the screen for your reference. Click on the question mark within the square and type "I would like to make a comment" in the ask field and send it to all panelists.
Okay. I think we can close it up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next group is discussion and consideration of board adopted regulations undergoing final review by the Office of Administrative Law. There's only one regulation in this section, and it is proposed regulation to add Title 16, Section 1714.3, Community Pharmacy Staffing. This proposal will establish the criteria of a pharmacy that a pharmacy must meet to identify and ensure a person is assigned to assist the pharmacist as needed when the pharmacist is working alone in compliance with Business and Professions Section 4113.5. Members, are there any comments on this regulation? Not having any, moderator, please open the lines for public comment.
This is the moderator. The Q&A feature has now been opened. Again, the question mark icon and type "I would like to make a comment" in the ask field and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you
Okay,
like to?
Yep, let's close it. Thank you. Okay, the next section is discussion and consideration of board adopted regulations undergoing formal review by the Department of Consumer Affairs or the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency. The board has three regulations undergoing formal review. The first is proposed regulation to amend Title 16, Sections 1769 and 1770, substantial relationship and rehabilitation criteria. The proposal will increase transparency and clarity to license applicants with respect to rehabilitation criteria the board considers when evaluating an applicant's eligibility for licensure. The proposal is currently undergoing formal review by agency. The next one is proposed regulation to amend Title 16, Sections 1702, 1702.1, 1702.2, and 1702.5, renewal requirements. This proposal updates the renewal requirement language to include all licensing programs and reduce the administrative workload associated with the need for frequent amendments when new licensing programs are established. This proposal is undergoing formal review by DCA. The next is proposed regulation to amend Title 16, Section 1707, offsite storage. The proposal amends the board's regulations regarding the waiver requirements for offsite storage of records to allow those cited for a records violation to receive a waiver to store records off-site. This proposal is also undergoing formal review by DCA. Members, are there any comments on the section that I just read? Not having any, moderator, let's open for public comment, please.
The Q&A feature has now been opened. Again, the instructions are on the screen. Click on the question mark and type "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field and send it to all panelists.
I think we can close it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next section is discussion and consideration of board-approved regulations undergoing public comment. The board currently has 2 regulations in the public comment period. The first is proposed regulation to amend Title 16 CCR sections 1780 to 1783 at sequel related to dangerous drug distributors and third-party logistics providers. This proposal establishes the regulatory framework for third-party logistics providers. The comment period closes on July 13th, 2020. Given the timing of the comment period, I would anticipate this proposal will be considered for action during the July board meeting that's coming up in a couple of weeks. Next one is proposed regulations to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1711 related to quality assurance programs for ADDS, Section 1713 related to use of receipt and delivery of prescriptions and prescription medications, and add Section 1715.1 related to ADDS self-assessment form 17M-112. The second proposed regulations in the comment period will require submission of quality assurance records to the board. Will update the board regulations with respect to the use of an APDS and identify the specific requirements for the annual completion of the ADDS self-assessment form. The 45-day comment period for this package ends on August 17th. I would anticipate this proposal will be considered for action during the September board meeting. Members, do you have any comments on any of the proposed regulations in this section? Not hearing any. Moderator, please open the lines for public comment.
The Q&A feature has been opened. If you would like to make a comment, click on the question mark icon and type "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Has been closed.
Okay. The next section is discussion and consideration of board-approved regulations undergoing pre-notice review by the Department of Consumer Affairs or the Business, Consumer Services and Housing Agency. At the time of releasing the materials, the board currently had 6 regulation packages undergoing review. As there have been some updates, I will note the change. Proposed regulations to add Title 16 CCR Section 1717.5 related to automatic refill programs. This proposal establishes regulatory requirements for automated refill programs. Pre-notice review was completed on this regulation package following release of the meeting materials. We anticipate the public comment period will begin on July 17th. Next, proposed regulations to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1715 to update self-assessment forms 17M-13 and 17M-14. The proposal updates the self-assessment forms that I just mentioned as incorporated by reference in Title 16 CCR Section 1750. Additionally, this regulation updates Section 1715 with clarifying language as to the completion and certification requirements of the self-assessment forms. I note it has been undergoing pre-notice review since December 2018. Next. Was there a comment? Oh. Next. Proposed regulations to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1784 to update the wholesaler 3PL self-assessment form 17M-26. This proposal updates the self-assessment form that I just mentioned as incorporated by reference in Title 16 CCR Section 1784. Additionally, this regulation updates Section 1784 with clarifying language as to the completion and certification requirements of the self-assessment form. As with the prior package, this regulation proposal has also been undergoing pre-notice review since December 2018. Next is proposed permanent regulation to add Title 16 CCR Section 1747 related to independent HIV PrEP and PEP. Now, this proposal will make permanent the emergency regulations that establish the criteria for training programs to meet in order to be offered to pharmacists, so that pharmacists may independently initiate and furnish pre-exposure and post-exposure prophylaxis. Pre-notice review on this package started on February 7, 2020. Current emergency regulation will expire on October 28, 2020. Next is proposed regulation to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1715.65 related to inventory reconciliation. This proposal amends and clarifies the requirements for the completion of the inventory reconciliation report. This package was referred to DCA for pre-notice review on May 11, 2020. Next is proposed regulation to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1715.6 related to drug losses. This proposal amends the drug loss reporting requirements to further define when drug losses must be reported to increase clarity for the regulated public. The package was referred to DCA for pre-notice review on June 3rd, 2020. That's the last proposed regulation within this section. Members, are there any comments on these regulations in this section? If so, please remember to unmute. Okay. Not hearing any. Moderator, please open the lines for public comment.
The lines are open. Simply click on the Q&A icon and type "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field and send it to all panelists. I have an individual identified as Danny Martinez who would like to make a comment. Danny, I will be unmuting your microphone shortly. You have 2 minutes to speak and a 10-second warning. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Thank you. I really more have a procedural question. Under the proposed permanent regulation for pre-exposure, post-exposure prophylaxis, in the event that the regular regulation is not enacted by the time the temporary one or the emergency one is ended, what is the time period for the emergency regulation to be renewed, just so that we're all understanding of that?
Okay, I'm going to ask our counsel to respond to that. Moderator, can you open the line of our counsel, please?
Hi, Rebecca, are you available to respond? If not, I'll give it an old college try.
I'm here. This is Rebecca. Could you please repeat the question?
This is the moderator.
So the board, yeah, so I think I can do it. So the board's PEP and PrEP regulations, we have emergency regulations that took effect earlier and it's set to expire the end of October. If the permanent regulation is not done, the question is what becomes of the emergency regulation?
Oh, if they're set to expire, then they'll still expire. The emergency regs are the ones that are going to expire, and the new ones are, yeah. Then if new ones aren't coming into place, then that won't affect the status of the emergency ones. Let's see. I think, however, like if you're basically operating in line with the regs that are coming into place shortly, that should help prevent any issue.
Sorry, if it's okay to jump in, this is Anne.
Of course.
I do believe in the past we have, through a board action, been able to extend the emergency regulation for an additional period of time. I think we have a very good public health argument. I also think that I believe that the Office of Administrative Law has extended their review time for regulations in response to COVID. So I think both the public health argument as well as the delays with COVID, I think the board would be well positioned to request an extension or a re-renewal. I don't know what the technical term is of the emergency regulation, and I think it could be done for an additional like 100 or 180 days. But Rebecca probably knows that better than me. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think our reg counsel was originally going to be on the line. I'm not sure, but yeah, but that sounds. I would second that.
Okay, thank you.
This is the moderator. I have the same individual, Danny Martinez, that would like to clarify his question. Would you like me to unmute his line?
Sure.
Danny,
Hi.
you've been unmuted.
Thank you. So, no, yeah, I appreciate the information. I guess what I was asking is if when the emergency regulation expires in October, and we have a pretty good sense that the regular permanent regulation is not going to be enacted by that time, what is the time or what's the expected time to actually renew the emergency regulation? So is that done just by itself, or does there need to be action by the board or OAL? How, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So I just want to make sure we're not having a gap in time where the emergency regulation ends in October, we have no regulation, and then it renews again. I'm just trying to find out that timeline.
This is Rebecca again. As I understand it, there are 2 3-month extensions, and I think Anne had more detail about how those occur, but they'll last for 6 months, and then there will be 2 3-month extensions.
So,
And the board has a meeting in October. There's one in September. So if board action is required in advance, I think that the board is well situated to take the necessary action to extend the emergency regulations.
so we will look at it in September. Is that good, Danny? Oh, can he answer or not?
Oh, sorry. Let me, this is the moderator. I will go back
Okay.
in and unmute. Danny, you've been unmuted.
Yes, thank you, President Lippy. That answers the question. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is the moderator. I have individual identified as Clay Jackson in the attendee list with his hand up, and it says it's DCA legal reg unit. Should I?
Oh, yeah. Okay, let him speak.
Hi,
Clay, you've been unmuted.
thank you. Hi, this is Clay Jackson. And I am Regulations Counsel for DCA and for the Pharmacy Board on some issues. And I've been listening in. You get up to 1 year for an emergency regulation. And so it is 6 months at first, then you can renew it up to the full year. It does have to be done prior to the 6 months expiring, or you lose it. So the fact that you've got a September meeting, which would be before the timeline,
Right.
would you to renew it in time.
Thank you, Clay. Great, thank you. Okay, moderator, want to close up and then I can move on?
Yes, it has been closed.
Thank you. Okay, next is agenda item 11, or it's actually the last group of proposed regulations that I'm going to be discussing or referring to. Proposed regulation to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1793.5 related to the pharmacy technician application, Section 1793.6 related to the pharmacy technician training requirements, and Section 1793.65 related to the pharmacy technician certification programs. This proposal establishes the training requirements and certification programs and updates the application for licensure for pharmacy technicians. I note that this regulation package was originally approved by the board in October of 2016. Changes have been requested on a few occasions. The package was resubmitted in for pre-notice review in October of 2018 and returned to the board for amendments to implement provisions of AB 2138 in December of 2019. Next one is proposed regulation to amend Title 16 CCR Section 1709 related to pharmacy ownership, management, and control, including through trusts. The proposal amends the board's regulations regarding ownership to include provisions relating to trust ownership of pharmacies. The package was returned to the board on April 22nd, 2020. I note that this package was originally approved by the board in October 2016. As with the prior regulation, changes have been requested on several occasions. That's the last regulation in this group. Members, if you have any comments, please remember to unmute and state so now. Okay, having heard no comments from members, moderator, please open the line for public comment.
The Q&A feature has been turned on again. Click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen and type "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field, lower right of your WebEx screen, and send it to all panelists. And Chairperson, there's no request coming in.
Thank you. Okay, that concluded the regulation section. Our next meeting is scheduled for October 27th, 2020. Thank you all members. Thank you all of the public who observed or participated in the meeting today. The meeting is now adjourned.
Hi, Greg. I have one question for.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, this is I just want to confirm with Ann and the staff for the future meetings. They're all listed for October 27th for all 4 committees. So I'm not sure if that's actually possible or not. Just wanted to give you guys heads up on that. So
thank you. I'll check into it and get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Have a good evening, everyone.
You too. Be safe, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Okay. Good meeting. Thank you.